نوالها كل العباد وعم نوالها كل العباد حبيب الله يا خير البرايا قمرون قمرون قمر سيدنا النبي قمرون الله الله وجميل 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 سيدنا النبي وجميل ولا ظل له بل كان نورا الله الله تنال الشمس منه والبدور الله الله ولا ظل له بل كان نورا الله الله تنال الشمس منه والبدور الله الله ولم يكن الهدى لولا ظهورا.
Is there any way we can tie this or attach this to the microphone? This is the stream mic.
Just put it on there.
No, the thing is, it'll switch, right? I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to attach this to the mic, to the speaker, to the mic.
We just
I can hand them both. I can just hand them both.
سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل 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 سيدنا النبي وجميل. تكبير الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله يا شيخ.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, beautiful army. This is late, MashaAllah, so many people. Beautiful to see, alhamdulillah. We were in Orlando, 2 weeks ago, right? Alhamdulillah, we were in Orlando 2 weeks ago. Beautiful faces. Myself and Hafiz Omar, we drove up to Atlanta a few weeks before that. Beautiful faces. It's crazy that in this region, there's just so much. It's not, there's so much masjids, there's so many Muslims, there's so much, there's just so much. There's so many of us. But it's crazy that after having so many of us, we don't have some sort of unified hub of seeking sacred knowledge. Who's heard of Qalam? Alright, come on guys. Who's heard of Qalam? MashaAllah. You guys just had Qamariya Chai. You guys are, no, sleep on me, bro. Who's heard of Miftah? Right? Okay, there we go, MashaAllah. Miftah? Okay, wow, surprising. Okay. Who's heard of Darus Salam? Okay, right? Darus Salam's where? Chicago. Miftah is where? Michigan. Dallas, Qalam, right? These are hubs of learning, mashallah, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase them in the work that they're doing and preserve those ulama and preserve those students of knowledge and protect them from any harm. This area, we don't have something to that degree, right? It's shocking because of, mashallah, the growth that we've seen. I mean, subhanAllah, one of the guys who came with his brother Jeffrey, he's from West Palm Beach. I mean, that's where he was from. He moved around for school. He was in Tampa for a bit and then moved up to St. Louis. You know, he moved around, but he came back and he was astonished with the growth that this community has seen. The thing is, you and I, like, especially people my age, I'm 20 years old, right? I'm not wowed by the growth because of the fact that I just wasn't here early enough to see the explosion, right? And I feel like a lot of us can attest to that. We just weren't here to see the explosion. But it's happened. But there needs to be something to go with the momentum, right? The wind is blowing. We just got to put a flag on the ground and have the flag, wave in the wind. The momentum is going with us. It would be odd and foolish not to bury a flag into the ground right now while we can. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of Kufah Institute, right? Kufah Institute is what? The whole maqsad is to bring a viable and a realistic avenue for seeking sacred knowledge in a time where it's difficult to cling on to your faith, right? And it's difficult to weed out right from wrong. I mean, you have TikTok shuyukh, you have Instagram shuyukh, you have you have Reddit shuyukh, you have all these types of shuyukh. Where's real scholarship? What is real scholarship? What does that mean? What does the word traditional scholarship mean? Right? What does traditional scholarship look like? That's the whole point of Kufah, to bring that to an audience that we feel genuinely is thirsty for it. Scholarship, scholars. What is a scholar? Because as I said right after Isha, a scholar is someone who is continuously striven in the path of deen, sought sacred knowledge. But a lot of the ulama we see here, specifically the ones, mashallah, that I'm honored to be in the company of, next to me, they're born and raised right here. Right here, homegrown ulama. They went to the same schools we went to. They were surrounded with the same things we were surrounded by. They saw the same things we saw, right? They saw these things. They saw 9/11. They saw LeBron win 3 championships. They saw the 2016 comeback. They saw the Super Bowl when they blew a lead. Like, they saw all these things. They were in that lifetime. They're not from a different universe. It's really real, right? And the whole purpose of this is to show what scholarship looks like for someone like us. That's the whole point. We want to remove this foreign aspect of it, because at the end of the day, what's the hadith say? طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, right? That doesn't mean everyone becomes a scholar. What does the hadith mean? The seeking of sacred knowledge is mandatory upon every single Muslim. It doesn't mean that everyone becomes a scholar, but we need to learn to have an appreciation for what it is. And first of all, for that, what precedes that? What even is it? What even is it? What does it look like in today's day and age? So inshallah, we have a couple of questions, inshallah, that have been selected for the ulama. Just heads up, some of these are pretty hard hitting. I promise I didn't write them, but I will be the one asking them. So please do not shoot the messenger, inshallah. Just really quickly on it, just before we start, if I could, I'm just going to pass the mic from my side down, and then if each scholar could just say their name or where they were raised and where they studied, I guess, inshallah, just so all the individuals can.
So Omar Hussaini, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I studied mostly in Chicago, and then for my final year I was at Darul Zakaria in South Africa. And then when I came back, I moved from Chicago to St. Louis, and from St. Louis to Tampa, where I currently live.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yusuf Ghos, born and raised in Chicago. Born and raised in Chicago, I saw LeBron win 4 championships. I studied, in college I studied math and economics, and then thereafter I went to South Africa and studied the traditional ilm program, and I studied in Johannesburg, graduated from institution over there, and then I've been teaching in Chicago since then.
Assalamu alaikum, Zaid Sharif. I was born and raised in South Florida, did Hifz al-Quran here, then traveled to Pakistan, studied Arabic in the Islamic Studies program there, graduated, came back, alhamdulillah, serving at Masjid Jamaat al-Muttaqeen and also in college.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Imran Salam. I was born and raised here in Pembroke Pines. I did my Hifz in Atlanta. I went to Charles W. Flanagan High School, and after that I went to South Africa and I finished the program there. And from the now I'm serving in Port Charlotte. It's like 2 hours north of here, 2.5 hours.
Let's pass the mic around, inshallah. So, the first question was pretty heavy, and I think that was for a reason, just so we can really shatter the ice, so we can kind of just open up from there, inshallah. So these questions can be a little more rapid fire, so even a minute answer, that's fine, inshallah. So we'll just go right to left, inshallah. What is your most memorable experience as a child growing up?
Most memorable experience as a child. It's probably my madrasa days. When we were the innocence of youth and also the shararat of youth. So we used to do this thing. There was not like madaris at that time. You memorize the Quran, you're in someone's basement. And there's very few people in the country actually who are doing it at that time. Some of them are big names now. But we'd have a lot of fun. So anyone who came new to the madrasa, they would be an initiation. So sometimes we'd like get on each other's shoulders and put a big sheet on ourselves and pretend we're jinns to freak everything out of them. Or we'd do like this thing called a Fajr fake out. So Fajr fake out was, so if we had to study late and someone else was doing really well, then we would get jealous. And then what would happen is they would get to go to sleep early and we'd have to stay up late, like reciting our sabak or whatever. So what we would do is they would go to sleep downstairs, and so we would have someone go on the stairs and pretend they're giving adhan as if it was Fajr. You're like, man, I feel like I just went to sleep. And they're, come on, man, Mauli's coming. You gotta go and make wudu. So then we're like, and he looks at the clock, and we turn the clock to the Fajr time. So he goes in the bathroom and it's like, turn off the hot water. So it's like all cold water. And then by the time he goes inside, then we turn the clock back. And then, what's that called? All get into our beds, turn everything off, and just go to sleep. And he comes. That's the Fajr fake out. But it gives you some glimpse of those wonder years, I think, in the madrasa. And those buddies are like, till this day are my buddies for life.
Most memorable experience, I'm still trying to remember it. So we'll come back to me, inshallah. Think of something.
So I'll second Shaykh Omar in madrasa days. I was assuming that everyone in this line is going to say that, but I'll say it anyways as well. But I was 14 when I went to madrasa, so pretty young. My youth was there, and I grew there. My personality, everything I am today, pretty much I would say came from there. First time I ever went to Pakistan, even though I'm Pakistani, was when I went to madrasa. I spoke really kacha Urdu at that time, like a white boy. But growing, with the people in the madrasas, and it happened to be in the year that I started, 9 other students came from America. So I was lucky, alhamdulillah, I wasn't just alone. There were other Americans that came. There's so many memories. I would say that the toughest days in madrasa are the most memorable days. I remember when, we'd be sitting together, and it's Pakistan, it's hot, electricity's gone, fans off, and our room was, even in a way, almost like a basement. It was really inside, and there's no air movement. It's disgusting. But I just remember us students, after class, after Isha, Muta, everything's done, we're just sitting together, we're all sweating, we're dirty, and we're just like, this is just so enjoyable. It's really weird, but wallahi, the difficult times were the best times, I would have to say, that we had in madrasa days.
If it had to be a single event in my life when I was a child, then I would have to, obviously I'm going to say the same thing, right? Because most of my life was spent outside of Florida. Most of my life I spent in a boarding school or by myself. I would have to say the single most impactful, memorable event was the day I graduated and became Hafiz. Because at that time, you kind of don't know, okay, it's a big responsibility, and you have to live up to it. At that time, you're just like, I finished, right? So then you're just very happy all the time. So I would have to say that that's the top one. May 14th, 2007, I remember the time, it was 9:45. You recite the last sabah, like you can't forget something like that.
It's a bit hard to pick a singular moment. In general, like as any adult would say, the thing that's most memorable for me is when I was a kid, when I didn't have any responsibilities or anything to do, I could just have fun all day. But that's not really something that, it's not really a singular moment. So I guess, I guess I'll say the same thing that all the esteemed scholars are saying, that not just being in madrasa, but particularly, I guess, two things that I'm very fond of. One is my family, another is the opportunity that Allah gave me to study a little bit, memorize the Quran and things like that. So when I'd be picked up by my parents at the end of each week or the end of each term, that was memorable because on one hand I was in madrasa, on the other hand I was able to see my family after a long time. So those are the moments I perhaps cherish the most.
This was not orchestrated ahead of time.
Oh, sorry?
This was not orchestrated ahead of time. It was like all raw. Yeah. Like we didn't even know that these guys were gonna be here.
Pulled a lot of strings to get with the arm of these days, but not to grace us. So pre-madrasa, right, before you had entered into that world, or even in that world, right, whether it's something as simple as hymns, like, was there a struggle with faith? Were there questions that you had? Was it weird that you were kind of put into the system at such a young age and you're kind of just going with the flow? Was there a time where, it just felt like you were drowning, like it was too much, like it's not something you wanted to do? Were there ever doubts like that? If there were, then how did you overcome those at such a young age?
Doubts when we're in madrasa?
In madrasa, whether it be hifz or, in the Alam course.
So doubts in madrasa or problems before madrasa?
So a lot of the ulama had entered madrasa at like a really young age,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to...
Okay, so what struggles that
However you want to take it.
Yeah, however you
want to take
it.
it. We'll let Yusuf start this.
So that was a lot of questions, so I guess from that I'll just kind of choose something within that spectrum. So in terms of, I guess, struggles within madrasa and did I ever want to quit? So there's a lot to say. There's many instances. So I had kind of two different madrasa phases in my life. One is that when I was 12 years old, I went to memorize the Quran. Allah God blessed me with that opportunity. And then post-college, I went to study traditionally overseas. So those are kind of two separate phases in my life, separated by, of course, high school and college as well. So I guess in the second phase, it was pretty difficult for me because I was going to a boarding school, a world away from home. Things were, very different. Culture was different. The school was kind of designed for people who, I guess, maybe weren't so excited to be there. Whereas for me, I'd already finished college. I was, I'd left all of that in order to study, so I wanted to be there. But then I guess the rules and things were designed, I guess, for people who weren't exactly, of the same mindset. So there are many instances within that experience that in which I wanted to leave the institution that I was studying in. There was never an instance in which I wanted to leave the idea of studying altogether. So that's an important distinction to make. So there are many things that frustrated me within the institution, perhaps too many to talk about, but then like in the time that we have. But then I think what really, I guess, kept me afloat, and people ask me this a lot, that did you ever not want to study? There wasn't at any point that I didn't want to study. And the thing that kept me afloat is that I think many times people study and they're just kind of like sort of on a day-to-day basis going through the motions, which is okay too. But then in addition to that, I also had this idea in mind. It's kind of like a fake thing, but I thought that in the US, there's a huge void of scholarship. And there's very few people who, the field that I was interested in was the field of hadith. And I said there are very few people who are specialized in hadith. And although it was kind of fake and sounds sort of self-aggrandizing, a little bit grandiose, but I would tell myself the whole country is on your shoulders. So you can't rest. You can't waste any time. And maybe it wasn't actually like that. Maybe, as I said, a little bit self-aggrandizing. But that's really what kept me afloat. There are many a times where I was very frustrated by the circumstance and I perhaps wanted to transfer out of the institution, which I didn't. I ended up seeing it through. But I never wanted to leave the notion of studying, because sort of every time you dip low, then if you have sort of an overarching goal, then that sort of like serves as like strings that sort of hold you and prop you up, and prevent you from like sort of when your morale dips, then, or so when your morale to study the place you're studying dips, it's very likely that your morale to study altogether will dip as well. But if you have some sort of overarching goal, be it even like, you know, kind of like fake in this case, it really helps to keep you propped up.
He asked a question and he even pointed, I mean, he's like, some of the guys are really young. Yeah, I know I was the young guy, but I was too young to have any problems. It's true. I was pretty sheltered before going to madrasa. So yeah, I didn't really have any, I would say, any troubles before. Madrasa was the most exciting thing for me, actually, probably in my life. I did not want to go to high school. I did not want to do anything here. I just wanted to go. I saw people like Omar, who had already went 2 years before me, and you know, other people, which I have to say, you know, you only grow as much as your peers are growing, right? And if I'm sitting here, it's only because of the barakah of people I saw around me growing, right? So alhamdulillah, I happen to be, it's not anything in me, but I happen to be in that environment. People were growing around me in deen. So I chose also to do it. I was very inspired, you know, to do it. In the madrasa days, you know, I didn't have any issues as well. I would say second Shaykh Yusuf as well, that, you know, there were times where if I wasn't happy, I knew this is what I wanted to study, but maybe I wanted to study with someone else. I knew someone else would be a bit more, an institution specialized in something a bit more. So I did actually study in 3 different madrasas in Pakistan, and that was a great experience, alhamdulillah. I would say I'm facing more difficulties in life now than this time. But alhamdulillah, you know, we take it one step at a time, and we grow and we continue learning. But one thing, if I were to share something very personal, is that, you know, me seeing myself now, I'm like, you know, I see people, I'm turning 27, I see people turning 27 and they already have this amazing career in IT and all that stuff, and it makes me feel a certain way sometimes. Or I'm like, man, I sacrificed so much so I could serve the community, and the community doesn't even want to like help you in any way. And the same community are always complaining after this salah, why can't it be this way? Why can't the time be like this? And why can't this be like that? And you know, you're facing so much where you're sometimes, should I have even done this? Honestly, what was the point of it? But wallah, there is a kind of part, I would say, in me that's just like, this is what makes me who I am. And you know, at the end of the day, akhlaq, ethics, our principles of being people of deen, it gives us a certain internal honor that we have in ourselves of being people of deen. Like when Ali, you know, like famous statement of his, you know, when he said, that, you know, we're pleased with the kind of divine division that Allah has done amongst people, that, you know, ignorant people have wealth and we have knowledge. So, like, you know, if you study Islam, then all of these tests become like nothing. Rather, the thing that probably bothers you the most is like, why am I not learning Islam more? That's like the thing that, you know, I'm doing other things, I wish I could learn Islam. But that's like your biggest test. You know, so before, didn't go through much, but I'm going through more now. Alhamdulillah.
So, I guess I'm sort of the vagabond, and I've always been that way. Ever since, don't let my sharif exterior delude you. So even when I was like small, when I was like younger in madrasa, everyone said, oh, he's like the nice kid, mashallah. All the teachers thought I was like the angel, but like behind her, the dada, you know, running the show from behind. And but part of that is also understanding that I just don't follow the rules. And I think this is something that you also see with great thinkers and people who do great things, is that they understand that all of the structures that exist without us are completely arbitrary. Right? Do you need a degree to send a rocket to space? No. Everything is nebulous, everything is open. And it was sort of like that ever since I was a child. Like, believed it or not, I didn't care about school. Like, there was no rules. Like, I was out of school for, I don't know, 4 years. And you don't know what's going to happen with your future, X, Y, and Z. There was a point, so one of the things is that how many people here in the audience have memorized some Quran? Right? So if you spend some time memorizing Quran, you understand that memorizing is the easy part, keeping it is the hard part. And so obviously you're young and so you skip on the revision. So I did 18 juz and I was doing it super fast, but I never did revision. So lo and behold, you get to 18 juz and you forgot everything. Right? So now you're just like the guy who swam halfway across the English Channel and he got tired and he swam back. So it's sort of like that, like, no, what do you do now? You did 18 juz, you forgot everything. And all your mates are going on in life, so on and so forth. They're going to school. I had no school, there's no homeschooling, no nothing. But interestingly, like, Allah just put this thought in my head, like, if I don't do anything else in my life, right? And I wasn't a scholar, I didn't even know the hadith, but I said, if I don't do anything else in my life other than memorizing the Quran, I think that's enough for me. And whether it was going to be another 4 years or it was going to be another 20 years, I was okay with it. Just chilling in that basement, running our scams, and skipping Ibara and Dora and everything, and keep on. So in that sense, I guess I didn't have that crisis of wanting to end. It was sort of the other things, like let it take as long as it wants. I think this is the only thing at that point that somehow mattered.
So, should I start asking more targeted questions? So, like, for example, like, this question will be with Imran, this question, or should we just, I think go. So, I'll start with you, Shaykh Omar. So, after Hibs, was Alam course like the natural next step for you? Was it the no-brainer? Was it something, because at that point, you were at a point in your life where you could decide, right? So was that a no-brainer? Was that a tough pill to swallow? Because you also are a physician, right? So, putting your life on hold, did you even feel like putting your life on hold? What was the thought process like at that moment?
Yeah, sure. So after I did finish Hibs, I had zero intention to become a scholar. Maybe, and then after I finished Hibs, I went back to school and regular life, then it was probably like negative 15% or 20% of ever becoming a scholar. I was on a completely different trajectory in life, I think. But I think that's one of the things that you learn sometimes the hard way. And now in retrospect, you understand that, look, this might be a question that's coming up, so I'm just going to preempt it. Like, what is the toughest thing that you had to deal with? So the toughest things I had to deal with was with girls and acceptance, right? Like getting people to like you. That was like the summary of my youth. And you find out at a certain level that the entire dunya and all of this is just an empty vessel, full of sun and fury, signifying nothing. It's just vapor. And when the vapor evaporated, the only thing that was left standing was Islam. And that's when I went back to the feet of my teachers that I studied Quran with, now to actually understand what was in it. And that was the beginning of what became a very long journey that spanned more than a decade studying knowledge.
This one, Yusuf, you always had that desire to study. That was never, you made it very clear, that was never in question whether you wanted to continue or not. Why was that never in question? And for someone who has no desire to seek sacred knowledge or no desire to seek it to that degree, why is that even relevant to the everyday person who, why can't someone just pray 5 times a day and just be fine with it? Or just go day to day and be a respectful Muslim who abides by the laws, doesn't litter, is nice to people. Like, why is that not okay? If it isn't okay?
So instead of speaking about why it's not okay, I'll instead speak about my personal experience. So where did that desire to study come from? So I didn't come from a family of scholarship or anything like that. I mean, I was pretty much the first person that went to study. But then what led to that desire to study? I guess there are a few factors. So one of the factors was that growing up, I guess you can say that I was in Chicago, so it's a very large, diverse community. There were a lot of different pulls in different directions. So then I grew up in a community, born and raised in a community that there wasn't necessarily any adherence to any specific school of thought. Instead, people said that we just need to follow the Quran and Sunnah, you shouldn't follow anyone else. So I'd hear a lot of that. Also, my extended family, there's a lot of people that have different views. Many people are Berkeley, if you know what that is. And then I would hear a lot of stuff on that side too. And then, in short, I was being pulled in all these different directions. And then sometimes I was told that you need to do something. And I'd say, oh, well, this person probably knows Deen better than I do, so I guess I should probably do that. And someone else would tell me that you need to do something else. And then I would think, well, this person probably knows Deen better than me, then I should probably do that. Then at some point I started to catch on. I said, well, these things are mutually exclusive, so how can I do both of them? And then I realized that, well, wouldn't it be better to figure out this thing myself instead of having to constantly be at the mercy of everyone else? So I guess that was sort of one factor that sort of contributed to my desire to study. I said that, well, Allah has blessed all of us with the most beautiful of all gifts, which is Islam. And let Allah allow us to die with this gift as well. But I don't really know it. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with it. So that was one factor that led to it. Another thing was that I had this idea that, so I had majored in math and economics, and then I had this idea, my idea was to do a PhD in economics. And then I thought that whatever I end up studying, be it economics or anything else, then if I couple that with a study of Islam at the same time, then I'll probably be able to gain deeper insight in whatever I study and be able to see it from a lens that I wouldn't have seen it before. So that was another thing. So then I thought that in order to, I guess, facilitate PhD study, graduate study, then it'd probably be good to study Islam sort of in the meantime. So that was a second factor. And the third factor was I saw something that had really impressed me. This is a little bit further down the road, but then I had seen, you can say, two things. One was I saw certain scholars, and they were able to quote the Quran, and pretty much any ayah, each ayah of the Quran had an independent meaning to them. So it's not just that I haven't memorized the Quran, as many of us have memorized portions of the Quran, or we're trying to. Inshallah, may Allah ta'ala allow all of us to do so. But then it was kind of like all just one big thing. And then I saw some people that had an independent relationship with each and every verse of the Quran. So they would quote a verse of the Quran, and then it meant something to them, and it applied to them in their lives in a particular scenario. And I said, wow, for me it's all just one big chunk. It would be really nice for each ayah to have some meaning to me. So that was one thing I had seen that inspired me, and I said, I want to do that same thing. The second thing was that I saw certain scholars, Shaykh being one of them, being another, may Allah ta'ala protect those who are still alive. So for them, the sort of phraseology that I'd come up with at the time was, they had the entire deen in a nutshell. So what I mean by that is that pretty much any aspect of deen, someone would bring up a certain topic, and they would say that, oh, regarding this, there's 4 hadith on the topic. This one says this one says that, and this one says this. And then we understand all of them together like this, and this is how we reconcile them. So this is what we're supposed to do in this particular issue of our deen. I saw that time and time again, and I said, wow, that's really cool. I want to understand the deen like that. So then that was, I guess, another factor that inspired me. And I said, I want to try to aspire to the same thing. May Allah ta'ala allow all of us ability to.
This one directed towards these a lot of the time people, they feel almost hypocritical in their youth, right? And in the sense that, like, for example, if some sort of talk is presented towards them, someone's visiting, or even to studying knowledge, or even a weekend class or something like that, a lot of times, and I've seen it, people talk to me, and they feel this sense of hypocrisy, like, you know, I'm involved in this, I do that, I look at this, I talk about that. Like, shouldn't I focus on removing that before I focus on building my you know, my knowledge, right? Is that an unhealthy mindset? Is that the right mindset to have? Because you've seen a lot of, you know, I mean, you've seen the community and you've dealt with people, you know, of all sorts of, you know, different mindsets. So how does one overcome that kind of hump? Is that from shaitan? Is that a genuine concern?
I think that that's actually a very good question. And I would say in specific, I think the best way to specifically go about this is perhaps attach yourself. You know, I'm giving a specific answer, one of best, but specifically attach yourself to a student of knowledge who's already been through the path, someone who's graduate perhaps, alim, you know, someone who's senior in age. That's the whole, you know, that's the whole tradition we have in Islam of attaching yourself to a scholar above you and allowing them to take the wheel and to guide you, and you take their criticism and you learn from them, etc. Stuff like that. So that would be the best kind of, I think, specific way to go about it. But in general, I guess response to that question, you know, to what just comes to my mind, is that, you know, I think the process of, you know, cleansing yourself from inside as well as then building yourself, you know, they go hand in hand. They happen simultaneously. It's not, you know, it's not something that, you know, I'm going to overcome, you know, I'm going to overcome all of these. For example, specifically as a man, you know, your shahwa, your desire, you know, your shahawat, all of your desires. You know, that's not something you're ever going to overcome one day. It's just something that maybe, you know, perhaps with more and more training, you'll bring a bit more balance to it. But that doesn't mean, you know, that you will overcome it. Maybe you'll just be able to navigate it better, control it a bit better, right? So the challenge is going to always be there, number one. And yes, there's an aspect of shaitan in it as well. That shaitan would obviously want you to not take a bigger step towards something bigger and better in your life, which is becoming, you know, a student of knowledge and learning Islam and learning Deen. That's like chaos for shaitan. You know, as it comes in the statements that are narrated to us, that, you know, one scholar is more heavier, you know, more of an issue, a problem for shaitan than 1,000 worshippers who don't have knowledge, right? Because, you know, when you have knowledge, when you have ilm, then, you know, shaitan's plots are going to be like child play for you. You'll see them better, you'll know them. So I don't think that, you know, one person should just, but I do think that there are some requisites which you should understand from the ulama. You should sit with them, you know, for example, is my tajweed good enough that I should go on to another science? Is my Quran good enough? You know, some of the ulama in the past would say, you know, the entry level, door level to the ulum is, for example, memorizing Quran. You know, so I do think educationally you want to, you know, be on the pathway of the right path. You don't want to be jumping, you know, somewhere you're not supposed to be. You know, that's not good in any place in life. That's not good in any role of life to try to stand somewhere you're not supposed to be standing. But at the same time, pushing yourself, because if you're not pushing yourself, then you're never going to get anywhere, right? There has to be something difficult. There has to be, and you know, I think, you know, the hadith of the Sahaba radhiyallahu anhum, you know, them criticizing themselves, saying, for example, Hanzala says, Nafaqa Hanzala, you know, Hanzala is a hypocrite. Abu Bakr says, I feel the same way. I think that also, as the ulama tell us, is a sign of iman itself, actually, that you're criticizing yourself, right? That side of yourself which is there to change yourself is awake, as it comes in hadith, that when Allah wants good for a person, if Allah wants good for someone, Allah will open his eyes towards the faults of himself. Now that's very stressful then. Oh, now I want to be this, but look at myself and where I am and what I'm doing. Right? And so I think, you know, that's a kind of life thing, but that should never stop a person from the path of Allah.
You mentioned right at the start a really beautiful piece of advice, which I actually was able to benefit from a lot, is trying to attach yourself to someone who has, you know,
Salih Sacred Knowledge, someone, you know, who's also, you see as a peer, someone who's, you know, of your age, but also been part of that world even. But this question directed to Mufti Imran, how do you gauge who that person is? Or let's even go away from that example. How do you gauge where you get your knowledge from? Because I was once told the example, because, you know, on TikTok, I've heard if you follow the right accounts, there's a hadith and there's reminders, or so I've heard. But
A friend told me.
but someone described it to me as, I mean, it's like you're going to a bar for a cup of water, right? Because it's like, yeah, you're gonna get the cup of water, but at what cost? Or what does it look like? Or what are the risks of that? I mean, is that an exaggeration? Because, you know, there are really great reminders on these social media apps. And social media is one sphere, right? Friendship, that's another sphere, right? Actual institutions, that's a whole different sphere. How does one gauge? Because to properly gauge that, you have to, you know, kind of dip your foot into every single puddle. Is that, you know, does that make sense? Is that realistic? How does one go about that? Especially at a younger age, like, you know, people are in high school.
Sorry, that was loaded.
That wasn't her.
So I'll start with a quote. Imam ibn Sirin passed away 110. He says, "Inna hadha al-ilma deenun fanzuru amman ta'khuduna deenakum." He says that this knowledge that you're getting, this knowledge is going to be your religion at the end of the day. So be very careful from where you take it. And we always hear the examples of medicine and trust your doctors. Essentially, if you want to verify where you're getting your stuff from, the easiest way to verify is your source has to be attested to by other scholars. Like if you have a show, TV show, Master Chef or something like that, who are the judges? The judges are going to be successful chefs who have their own restaurants. And it's not going to be someone from the street saying like, oh yeah, I think it tastes good, I don't think it tastes good. Like, what qualifications do we have to judge if someone's right or wrong? We don't have those qualifications, right? So, like a doctor becomes a doctor when other doctors say he's a doctor. So scholars become scholars when other scholars say they're scholars. So you can have someone on TikTok, but then having 1 million likes on a video by a group of people who can't differentiate between what, I mean, it's just, yeah, this food is good, you know, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, you can deduce this from the Quran as well. Musa alayhi salam, when he was in front of Fir'aun, then Musa alayhi salam, there's 3 groups of people. There was Fir'aun and his advisors, and then there was the magicians who were the experts of the field, and there was the common folk. And so when Musa alayhi salam is having his battle with the magicians, he throws his staff, and then what happens? Does anybody know what happens? Anybody knows? I mean, what group recognized Musa alayhi salam's, that it wasn't just sleight of hand? The magicians, right? So I mean, you have the general public, they just think like, oh wow, you know, they just think it's better magic. And then the people of Fir'aun, they also knew, but they were stubborn, they were arrogant. But then as soon as the magicians, they saw, they were the experts, they could be the judge of what's right or wrong. They immediately fell into sajda. And they immediately said, we believe in Rabbi Musa wa Harun. So it's going to be the same way. Like, so Mullah Yusuf, he said so many different people calling from here, calling from there. Easiest way you make the criterion objective, you say, okay, what did history say? History says that majority of Muslims did this, that's going to be right. If history said that this was a fringe ideology, it's going to be wrong. So just find someone you can trust from an accredited institution who's attested to by other scholars, and you'll be fine, inshallah.
So, I just sorry for the past few questions that are like pretty curveball. But so I'm pivoting a little bit. For someone who is like on the edge of, and this is for Shaykh Omar, so for someone who's on the edge, do I commit, right? Do I commit to something, whether it's a weekend class, whether it's even coming to a retreat, whether it's actually sitting down and setting aside a year of my life, but they're battling with, all right, but I have so many responsibilities, right? For someone who's married, I have kids, I have a wife. For someone who's in school, I mean, I have to, you know, I have to make sure that my parents are happy with this decision. I can't just take a year off. So, I think you can speak best to that. I mean, it's more like you had your first kid in med school, right? So I mean, that must have been, I can't even imagine how stressful the time that must be. I mean, how were you able to manage everything, but at the same time, stay, you know, keep Ulum Dini al Jari at that moment?
You know, one time a person came to one of my teachers, and he asked him about, you know, not having enough time. And he said, well, I have so many things going on. And he said, 24 hours is a lot of time. 24 hours is a lot of time. Once you cut off the shaft, you'll see how much space there is. In nature, of course, a vacuum. Something will fill it. And if you want to know, very simple thing, just put on, you know, there's some screen time tabulator on your phone. I mean, I challenge someone here to say that that's less than 3 hours a day, right? Less than, whether it's, you know, halal usage, I'm not talking about it. You might be just texting, you might be sending emails, I might be doing Kufah work. I mean, but I don't think anyone can say that, I mean, hardly anyone will say there's like 3 hours of time that, I mean, for the vast majority of people, it's just, there's nothing, if those 3 hours were not spent, you know, on infinite scroll, like nothing would happen. The sky's not going to fall down. But if you were to fill that with something meaningful, you might actually reach the sky.
Jazakallah khair. I know it's pretty late and people are getting a little tired. I do want to open it up. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, inshallah, the floor is open. So not all at once, please. Nobody, inshallah? Okay, really quickly, if I just get 5 minutes before everyone heads out. Of course, for the third time today, we're Kufah Institute coming from Tampa, Florida. So the whole point of this, the whole maqsad of this is for you all to understand what this whole thing is about. And when I say this whole thing is about, I'm not saying Kufah Institute, right? I'm saying this whole world of deen. Someone has a question. Sorry, you have a question? Okay, inshallah.
So, I know that, like, Kufah, for example, is, it's not like in the method of Hanafi. What would you say to people who grew up, like, in other madhab?
So the question was, Kufah Institute will be teaching the Hanafi madhab. What do we say about someone who grew up studying other madhab?
So one very, I guess, immediate question, answer to that is that we are already looking to expand offerings to other madhahib as well. I think the larger issue is access to something. If we're trying to find access to something wherever you are. Right? So for example, say I happen to live in Syria and I was born in Hanafi, I have no access to Hanafi scholarship, but all I have is Shafis around me. I probably would become Shafi just because I have access to a system where I could learn properly and follow, you know, something sound in that sense. So I think part of it is just a matter of circumstance. That's probably, in the end of the day, more to have one coherent methodology or approach to Islam is probably more important than the name that you put on it. So like I would maybe say that it's more important to put on the bandage than the color of the bandage, right? But I would say at the same time, if a person has a very strong affinity to, for example, to the Maliki madhab or something like that, there are resources, and you find those resources and seek it out. I don't think Kufah is not the goal, right? The goal is ilm. The goal is correcting our relationship with Allah and looking at whatever means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides. It just so happens that we're here in Florida, and that was the whole purpose of building it, because people have to travel so far. So let's try to bring water. If people can't come to the water, try to bring water to the people. That was really the idea. But if a person has the ability, for example, to go to Mauritania or or Yemen or whatever the case may be, that's still on the table.
Thanks,
I've been in the South Florida community almost 4 years now, and I've kind of seen a repeated theme on, in some cases, the community turning their backs on imams. Now, for someone who might not have as much influence, authority, or a no-name type of individual, how do you advise people who are like taking a neutral stance to be able to aid and abet scholars who are being left behind or set aside or even pushed away? And they might feel helpless and they might not have a voice. What should the average Joe, I would say, do in that case? Because I've seen that that's the case in national, I would say. I'm sure many of you guys seen that many times.
Your name?
Amir.
Amir, how long have you been in this area?
I converted in 2021. September.
Oh, mashallah. So his question was that a theme, a recurring theme that he's seen in this area is a lot of the time the community, whether they know it or not, they kind of almost turn their back onto the local imams or the current scholarship in the area. So his question was how, what is the average person, like what do you and I do to encourage people not to do that, or to somehow instill a level of importance or a level of ahmiyat into people's hearts of that scholarship? Is that great?
This is all day talking for them because they're both imams. That's why I'll take it. I had a colleague of mine. He was at New York School of Business. He later on became an alim. And when he came back from his studies, someone asked him, why don't you need to get a job? So he could go back into marketing and stuff. He had like Northwestern pedigree and whatnot. And he said that, I didn't take off the suit to put it back on. So he couldn't go back into corporate America. And he said, and then I think either myself or someone asked him, why don't you just become an imam? He said, I need to study 7 years to get spit at, right? And I think there is some reality to that. One of my other friends who was a imam at one of these massages in St. Louis, one of the board members came in and said, how many windows are there in the masjid? He said, I don't know. He's like, what are you doing the whole day? What type of imam are you? You know the number of windows in the masjid. So I think there's a reality to what you're speaking, and the way that I think part of it is understanding why that exists, and part of the reason that it exists is that the divide between scholarship and the masses has become too great. People don't understand what knowledge looks like. They don't understand the value of knowledge. There's just so much ignorance. I mean, I can tell you there's kids who I sat in the basement memorizing Quran with. One of them became a GI specialist. And he would tell some of us who went to go and study, he said, oh, what do you guys do for 8 years? He says, you just have to memorize some du'as, right? So you're doing a little bit more than memorizing du'as for 8 years. But there was this idea that they have no idea how important these imams are and the scholars are. They're actually holding up the house of Islam, literally holding up the house of Islam. And I don't think it's something that it's a culture change. And I can tell you that having traveled throughout the world, the culture that we have in America is a lot more irreverent than it is in other places. The UK doesn't have the same problem, for example. Mufti Abdurrahman Mangera, when he was here in Santa Barbara, he's now the 500 most influential Muslims, this, that, and the other. It was abysmal the way that he was treated when he just left. And that's part of it is Americans being Americans, right? I mean, like we don't respect anything, and that happens to come into the something in the water. But I think it's raising our children. That's one thing that very simply that we can do, to raise our children to honor the scholars, to serve the scholars, to serve institutions of scholarship, and to honor that and reinvigorating that tradition. That's probably, it's not something that you're going to be able to wipe out in like in a generation. It's going to take 1 or 2 generations to build up that culture shift, I think.
Was that able to? Okay, inshallah. Again, I know it's late. I know it's late. I don't want to keep you guys for too much longer, inshallah. But I hope this was beneficial. I hope this was able to kind of bridge that gap that Shaykh was speaking about. And that's the hope for Kufah in the long term, right? Just to bridge that gap, right? Scholarship doesn't look like people on distant mountains, right? Scholarship doesn't look like someone who sits in the corner and says, Allah, Allah. That's not what scholarship is. That's not what scholarship ever was. That's not what scholarship was meant to be, right? And that's what we're trying to make more obvious, more apparent. Now, alhamdulillah, this level of attendance, right, at this hour, it's 11:30 p.m. for anyone who hasn't checked their phone. And it's 11:30. I mean, this is, mashallah, you guys are like the cream of the crop. This is no ordinary thing, mashallah, right? This clearly shows that there's a level of dedication that you guys have that, the average person might not. And I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only increase you all in that desire and that love for this sort of knowledge and these sorts of gems. But alhamdulillah, we brought coffee all the way from, you guys don't have a Qamariya here. Surprisingly, I'm pretty shocked. I heard Haraz was opening here. Coffee was brought from Qamariya. We had a burger spot, right? Or what is it, Yallah, right? Smash burger spot. Those are great. Those are awesome. I love going outside and seeing all those people talk. That was awesome. But that's not the maqsad of why we come to a place like this. It's just not, right? What's the maqsad? For connections like this. That's the only maqsad of it. To increase in your closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's beautiful, that's awesome, that's great. Socializing and being close, that's not an un-Islamic value, that's a very Islamic value. To socialize with people and be an amicable individual. That's a very admirable thing, and that's great. But it's a problem when we begin to kind of, I'm only coming for the food, or I'm only coming for the vibe, I'm only coming for the... No, the whole point and the whole key is for people to understand that, hey, scholarship, some sort of striving in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not that it's awesome, it's not that it's afdal, right? It's not that it's the better thing to do, no. It's something, we all gotta do it. We all have to. Whether we like it or not, it's something that all of us have to engage in at some level or another. And it's hard, it is. I'm not gonna deny it. You think it was easy convincing my parents to go for 1 year? Right after high school, when I'm set to go to college? That's not easy to do. And my story is nothing compared to the stories of other people. I had friends that I studied alongside in Chicago who left families, abusive families, right? They left abusive families just to come study, right? They knew what they were leaving behind. They knew that their little brother at home was going to have a really hard time. They knew that it would be difficult upon them, but they didn't. We had people who were really sick throughout their time studying, but they didn't. They saw it through and they finished the year, or they finished the 7 years. People go through a lot of trouble, but for some odd reason, they always hit the mark. They always want to see it through. Why is that? What's the magic sauce behind it? Why? Why does someone want to do that? Why would someone want to go through all that struggle? Because it's hard. I'll be very honest, right? I mean, I've heard descriptions, I've heard stories from my teachers. Just sit after and just talk to Mufti for a bit about his time in Pakistan. It's hard to go study overseas. Straight up, right? And it's a luxury that I got to sit on a carpeted floor. On a carpeted floor when I was studying in Chicago. It'd be a luxury, right, to have the ability to seek sacred knowledge here. People had to go thousands of miles to go study, right? People had to go from wherever they were all the way to Kufah, all the way to Basra. Kufah's here now. Kufah's here now. These fountains of knowledge, they're here. But we can show the water, right? The water can be right in front of you. The fish can be right in front of you. I can give you the fishing rod, but I can't toss it for you. So that's where that extra push comes in, where you have to sit down, you have to ask yourself, hey, is this something I want to do? Is this something I need to do? Is this something I need to do? Is this a step I need to take? Not everyone can take 8 classes a day. Not everyone, it's basically impossible to do 2 things full time. That's hard. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not asking you to abandon your families. I'm not asking you to take a step that so many people in the past did in the path of ilm, in the path of knowledge. That's what they did, because that's what they knew they had to do. There's a sacrifice that comes with it, and that refines the individual. Diamonds are made under pressure. It's a corny phrase, but is it wrong? Is it wrong? That beautifies the individual. That makes them that much stronger, that much more muttaqi, that much more mutawakkil, someone who has strong faith and rooting in thee. That struggle is part of the process. It just is, right? It doesn't matter even if you sit on a chair, right? And there's air conditioning, and there's a TV, and you're sitting from a TV, or you're on the ground in a madrasa, and the shed is made of metal, and it's baking because you're in Pakistan, and it's really hot. There's going to be some level of struggle inherently, because it's part of the job description. It's part of the job description. But our question is, we see the level of struggle that other people had to endure. That level of struggle went from this to this, to this. Now we have to ask ourselves, and I know this is blunt, and I know it's very in your face, but sometimes that's something we have to hear. Do we understand that that's a step, even for this much struggle, that's a step we have to take at some point or another? I'm not asking you to commit to a full-time course. I'm not even asking you to commit to a part-time course. Because not everyone can do that. If you have a year off, whatever it is, if you're just graduating high school, who's in high school here? Show of hands. Hi. Show of hands. Okay, good amount of you. Who's in college right now, like first or second year? First or second year. Okay, who's finishing up college? Okay, these are all points where what? People take time in their life, they take a gap year, and they pursue something that's important to them. Something that they feel is important to them. I mean, people take a gap year and they go tour Europe. SubhanAllah. Take a gap year and come tour Tampa for a year. Go sit under the feet of scholarship for a year. And it's not, oh, come only to Kufah. Go seek signals, go do something for yourself. Because, alhamdulillah, I mean, we're an academic institution. The whole point is to encourage what? Scholarship. It's great. Oh, we need doctors. We need engineers. We need thinkers. But what are you taking to your grave? What are you taking to your grave? We're not asking you to spend a year to do something that's not going to benefit you and your children and your family and your extended family. It's a sacrifice that comes with a lot of reward. And a lot of times we don't see it, right? Because it's not instant gratification. We don't just see it right in front of us. You don't see it right away. But it's almost like we're playing with ourselves, right? Because if you want to become a doctor, you don't see it right away. I mean, you see a lot of struggle right away. But you see the gold at the end of the tunnel. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You see the gold at the end of the rainbow. Gold light at the end of the rainbow. Why is it any different with our deen? Why is it any different with our deen? And the fact of the matter is those benefits are not only visible once we're in the grave. They're not only visible when we get asked our 3 questions. They're not. They're visible in this dunya. In this dunya. One of the main things that is emphasized with any academic institution, and it's one of the main things that we're emphasizing at Kufah, is suhbah. Suhbah. Does anyone know what suhbah means? Companionship. The people who you surround yourself with. And I remember before I went to study for a year, I hardly studied, right? I'm nobody compared to these giants next to me. But before I went to study, someone told me, he said that you spent, because I was public school from day one. I never did Islamic school. Public school from day one. All those friends that I made in public school, Shaykh Omar actually, he told me this. The friends that I make in madrasa are going to trump all of that. All of it. I heard it. I was like, oh, mashallah. My mind was like, okay, I don't get it. I don't see how, right? It didn't connect. But then you leave the mother's and you're like, oh, that's why. Because the reason I'm friends with that kid in AB Stats is because I wanted to take AB Stats and he wanted to take AB Stats. The only reason I'm friends with that kid from middle school is because we happen to live in the same area and we both had to go to school, even though we both made a fuss about it the morning before. Or the night before. The only reason you'll be sitting in that classroom with the person next to you is because both of you went out solely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Solely to learn and hear Qala Allah and Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell me, any of you tell me, how would barakah not naturally be involved in such a relationship like that? So I'll be honest, after I came back, this is my fault. I don't talk to a lot of friends that live 20 minutes away from me. I don't call them anymore. The friends from public school, Muslim friends. But my buddy who lives in San Antonio, who I spent a year with, man, I call him so frequently. We're like this. I'd take a bullet for that guy. It's not just the experience. Or it's not just the content, it's the experience around it. And it's a light that you'll notice in your life like this. I'm telling you now because the nidam of the universe is such that whatever goes up must come down. It's the way it works. Stock goes up, stock goes down. Right? Stock goes up, stock goes down. Temperature goes up, temperature goes down. Health goes up, health goes down. Our spirituality, how we feel, it's the same way. The way you feel right now, the way you're going to feel walking out of those doors right now, I promise you, in 2 weeks, you just can't feel that way. You can't. You can't bring about that feeling. Your josh, your raghbah, that fire is lit. Right? You sat at the feet of scholars who spent a decade of their life, even more, studying nothing but Qala Allah and Qala Rasulullah. That fire is lit. Right? Hasten towards things like this. Right? Whatever it is, do something tonight that plugs you into something traditional. Something. Whether it's, mashallah, you sign up for a 1-year course, you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take this gap year, I see the benefit, I'm seeing it in front of my eyes, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to do the 1 year. That's awesome. Let that be your victory. That's one of the greatest victories you can even imagine to come out of a program like this. If you can't, I can't. I can do part-time. I'm trying to work. I need to do research. I need to get an internship. I need to do part-time. And I'm going to sign up right now. Let that be your win. Let that be your win. Let's say you can't. You realistically just can't do that. And that's okay. There's no issue with it. Not everybody can. If your win, if your connection to traditional scholarship is something even as simple as scanning a QR code to be entered into a group chat, where you get a link about a talk every 2 months, or every 2 weeks, or every month, or whatever it may be, where you hear a scholar who you know, hey, this person studied traditionally. This is going to be my connection to traditional scholarship. Let that be your win. Let that be your win. If your connection tonight is you take a flyer home, let that be your win. But don't leave here without a win. Don't leave here without a win. You're still on the edge about coming, spending a lot of time in Tampa. I get it. You know the thing is, I mean, it's not that difficult of a drive. People go study at UF or USF from Miami. They make their drive down all the time. It's not difficult. It's not. It's not. This is such a perfect spot to be at if you want to study in somewhere like Tampa. It's right here. You don't. I mean, I have to fly 1,000, literally on the dot, 1,000 miles from my home to the Dar es Salaam campus in Chicago. No one has to do that anymore. That's great if you want to. That's awesome. But there's something available here. There's something available right here in front of you. If 1 year full-time is difficult, okay, clear. If half a year, if part-time is difficult, okay, clear. If whatever it may be, if you just, because a lot of the time, what it is you have to see it to believe it. And that's just the fact of the matter. July 11th, July 12th, we have our retreat. It's the end of times. And we didn't pick this topic for no reason. It took planning, it took a lot of discussion. We played back and forth with it. Okay, how will this play out, how will that play out? There's a reason for this. There's a reason for this. We're being clawed at every single corner. And it's not the end of the times we're just looking at the signs, we're just looking over them just to see how, no, it's how do we act as Muslims now? What would be a better time than now to seek the rahmah, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to strive in the path of Allah, whether it be even on a part-time basis. So if you can't do full-time, you can't do part-time, let this be your victory. Make niyyah. Firm intention. I'm going to come for this. I'm going to come with my boys. July 11th, July 12th. It starts July 11th around 7 p.m. Asr. You stay, we'll have talks. Inshallah, we'll have i'tikaf, we'll have dinner. We'll have a soccer tournament after, a basketball tournament after. We'll have food. It's all free. Just come, right? Bas ajao. Just come. Just come. Let that be your victory. If you can't come for 2 days, come for 1 day. If you can't come for 1 day, come for 1 hour. If you can't come for a talk, we'll release the schedule in the Kufah chat. If you like any talk, oh, I want to come for this talk, come for that talk. If you can't come for a talk, come for a lunch and I'll sit with you. Just tell me, hey, I saw you in South Florida, bro. Give me a hug. I'd love to see you. I'd love to say salam. I'm so happy you were able to make it. But if that's your victory, let that be your victory. That you were able to see it and you're like, I need to see it to believe it. Let that be your victory. Let that be your victory. There's so many levels where you can plug in. If it's a Kufah announcement, scan the QR code chat, let that be your victory. If all else, if you can't do it, your phone's busted, you're really busy, right? You can't come to the retreat, your brother's birthday is that week, or something like that, right? If that's the case, then I have one small request that you just make dua. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sincere dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from those ulama and those individuals who are striving in the path of Allah. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the efforts for the rest of this weekend. Because there's 3 more events, right? Accept the efforts of this madrasa that we're inshallah trying to start. Accepts the efforts of this retreat. I mean, we have, right, if you can see the flyer, we have Shaykh Abdul Hakim Dickinson flying in from Tennessee, right? Mufti Nafis al-Rahman from Atlanta. We have our very Mufti Omar, subhanAllah, coming up from Port Charlotte, right? Sheikh Ahmaduddin Ahmed all the way from New Jersey. I mean, this took a lot of planning. We're looking at 800 people. We've never seen something like that in this region. 800 people all in one spot for one reason only. It's hard to fathom something like that. But subhanAllah, I'm blessed to be able to work next to dreamers. Dreamers. And it's my humble request that you help us, and of course, through the nasr of Allah, make this dream a reality. Because this will only benefit us. It's only going to benefit us. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, we're going to see the wealth. We're going to see the fruits of our labor. We're going to be able to be in Jannah. Qutufu hadaniya, pick the fruits. We're going to be those people. Inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us and accepts from us. I ask that you make sincere dua for this program. Shaykh Omar is here until midnight. If you can't do anything, come and say salam to any of these shaykh. If that's your connection, a handshake with Mufti Iran, right? Let that be your connection. But don't go without saying salam. If you have questions, come see us. There's 2 flyers. One flyer is what? It's the rest of the events. There's 3 events happening. The rest of that. There's a house gathering. There's a house gathering that's also happening. So it's more of this vibe, right? A lot more intimate, a lot more personal. It's a brothers' dinner. It's going to be in Coral Springs. If anyone's interested in that, please come see me. Or Hafid Amar's in the back. Hafid Amar, can you put your hand up? So come see us too if you want details on that. Actually, go see him, not me. For details on that, inshallah, go see him. Shaykh Omar Hussaini and Shaykh Yusuf both, they have a program tomorrow at ICW. It's what? It was told us 15 minutes from here? 15, 20? 20 minutes? Okay, inshallah khair. We drove 3 hours, 47 minutes. Bismillah. Right? 20 minutes, inshallah. ICW, Shaykh Omar Hussaini and Shaykh Yusuf both, they'll have a program on the company we keep. It'll be 7:15 p.m. Inshallah. It's going to be an open discussion. It says you're 18 plus. Inshallah, there'll be DIY ice cream stand and subs. Inshallah, so everyone's encouraged to join as long as you're 18 and up. Inshallah. But if you have any questions, I truly apologize for wasting your time. These are the ulama, these are the people who deserve to be speaking. But unfortunately, they put me up here. So, subhanAllah, anything wrong, anything of khair is not from me, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anything wrong which I've said is from myself and from shaitan. I seek your forgiveness for any time which I may have wasted. If I offended anyone, if I may have come off as too direct, please forgive me. That was not my intention at all. I ask that you make sincere dua for us and for our beloved ulama kiram that are sitting here as well. Please come say salam to us. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Takbir! 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 Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.